Good morning, David Wilder. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm great. I'm enjoying a very lonely Cinco de Mayo. How about yourself?
It's the same. Tequila and whiskey still works well by yourself, though, so it's all right. So, what is it? What is it that you do to collect money? How do you help people? How do you collect money? How do you bring it in? What is your path?
Okay, so the company that I own is called ITB Global. Stands for In the Black. So we have a lot of tools in the toolbox to kind of pull hidden profits out of businesses without investing a lot of capital, if any capital at all.
Yep.
And I'm really honored to be on this call. One, because it's a great opportunity for me. The other side of me is really annoyed because I get to deal with a guy like you who's learned so much in such a fast amount of time. I've taken decades to learn. So there's that yin and yang today. So, but I do appreciate the opportunity.
I love it, Dave. So the unfair advantage only comes from hanging out with guys like you, right? Like, so I spend a lot of time with people like you, learning what you know,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that just gives an unfair advantage. So, how did you get into this? What was it about it that drew you in, and what made you say, I want to find the hidden profits?
Um, so most of my career is in corporate America. So I worked with some, pretty big companies you might have heard of, AIG,
Oh yeah.
Yale. So I've always been in those jobs where, I'm working for a vice president, and I've had to figure out how to maximize my budget
Yep.
and make him look good.
Yep.
So I got to a point where, I didn't need a job anymore. And I thought I did collect enough information that I could bring it to small and mid-sized businesses to make them more profitable.
Right.
And talking to business owners, it's kind of amazing. Even before the COVID-19 thing,
Yep.
most businesses are 2 or 3 bad months away from closing their doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And we're seeing
Right.
those
So
months occur right now, and for some businesses, right?
yeah. So if I can come in and without any kind of risk to a company, give them an extra 1 or 2% margin, that opens a lot of doors.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I'm doing it. That's my why. I really like to help businesses work a little smarter. It's all of, as your book says, and as you have exemplified, thinking a little bit differently is the biggest change in the world, right?
Yeah.
So my business is about having companies think a little bit differently and driving profits to the bottom line. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely does. Absolutely. So, what are and we talked about cost segregation, right? We talked a little bit about that
Yeah.
in our text messages. How did you get involved with cost seg for real estate?
So cost segregation, for me, started off as just a smart tool for business owners. And then when you connect it with all the value of real estate, it's just a huge win-win. So, we're talking in this new reality of COVID-19. We're talking about one of the two inevitable things in life, right?
Yep.
My condolences to all those who have suffered under the coronavirus and those who've died. So death is one of those two inevitable things that we have.
Yep.
The other one is
Taxes.
taxes.
Yeah.
Okay? And cost segregation is all about, getting the IRS off your back, and bringing some more cash into a business. Now, if you're dealing with real estate, we have to qualify it. This is only commercial real estate stuff.
Yep.
So this isn't single family stuff.
Right.
So if the property that you're dealing with is a commercial property, and if they've paid taxes in the last few years, they have to do that. Cost segregation could be a great tool.
Right.
So I don't know how many people that you talk to actually deal with commercial property.
A lot of us do. So multifamily commercial, right? So we do residential commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would make this other pitch as well. During this time, business owners have been virtually closed for the last couple months. There's going to be a lot of them that say, this PPP thing isn't helping me as a business owner. It's just a pass through to my employees.
Yep.
Does it really make sense to open my doors again?
Right.
So I'm thinking for a lot of investors, it's a great opportunity. If they've never looked into commercial property, this might be a great opportunity.
Right.
And cost segregation is kind of fun because you can bring it into the mix. You can do a feasibility for both the buyer and the seller that they can both get more cash value out of the deal.
Right. That makes sense. So you're talking about actual purchases.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I don't want to insult anybody, but, does everybody understand depreciation?
You know what? New investors do not. For seasoned investors, we get depreciation. We understand it well.
Yeah.
But
So
let's go into it. Yeah.
Let's briefly define depreciation. Depreciation for commercial property allows you to write off a percentage of the value of the property every year. So let's say you have a $500,000 apartment house.
Yep.
Residential property is depreciated over 27 and a half years,
Right.
which means out of that $500,000 that I put in, I can depreciate $18,182 a year.
Yep.
And if I'm in the 25% tax bracket, that's an extra $4,500 jingle in my pocket.
Yep.
All right. So again, it's a straight line idea, depreciation, where I can gain a certain amount every year.
Yep.
Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So there's also something called bonus depreciation. You familiar with this as well?
Yeah. But my audience is not, so absolutely explain it. Yep.
So bonus depreciation is a special tool used in the last couple of years where even with used property, if I'm bringing something into use for the first year, I can depreciate 100% of the value of that asset.
Yep.
So if I'm buying an apartment building and I put in a new HVAC system or a new smoke detection system or whatever, I can write off 100% of that. So cost segregation has to deal with all that stuff.
It's a powerful tool for investors.
Very powerful tool.
Yep.
So, I saw one example where you buy property and it's like buying a Big Mac.
Yep.
You buy a hamburger. It's considered a hamburger, right? If you do a cost segregation, it's 2 all beef patties, lettuce, cheese, onions on a sesame seed bun. You break it down. All right. So cost segregation says some of that real estate, that real value, is going to be converted or segregated into another cost pool called personal property. So I'm taking pieces of that building and making it personal property that I can depreciate over 5, 7, or 15 years.
Right.
So this all makes sense.
Yeah, there's tax savings there. So for the people who don't understand depreciation, what it does is save us on the taxes, right? So if you earned income, now you can go and depreciate a section of it. On the flip side of it, you do pay for this later on when you go to sell the property. So we're careful and we balance our depreciation with how much we're spending in the building. If we had a year where income was very high, very few expenses, we'll want to focus a little bit more on the depreciation. And in order to do this, you get a engineer comes out and they take a look at the property and they evaluate the property, make sure that, this much is 15 year, this much is 10 year, this much is the 27 and a half, and they'll segregate the property. And that's where the word cost seg comes from. So once they've done that, now you know what you can actually depreciate, and you can actually now depreciate all in one drop some of those bonus sections, the 5 years, the 7, the 15.
Yep. So if I'm in a real estate, if I'm in the middle of a commercial real estate deal, I can get, what my company does is do feasibility studies. So I can go to the seller and say, hey, you've owned this building for less than 20 years. Have you ever done a cost seg study? They say no. Well, before you sell it, let's pull out what we can. And you can go back to 2014. And I think of, in my own head, the money that you've paid the IRS on that property going back to 2014, that's my bucket I'm going after.
No
right?
kidding. Yep.
So cost seg is a tool that allows you to reach into the IRS pocket and pull back some of that money you paid before he sells, right?
Right.
Then the same transaction, I can go to the seller and say, hey, you're buying this new property. You can do a cost seg study at the purchase, break down that cost seg, increase your cash value immediately, and reduce your tax liabilities.
Dave,
the other trick is on the buyer side, if I'm breaking all this stuff down and I've got the information, I very well could reduce my real estate insurance costs. Right. So that's another trick to that. So basically, we're looking at adding 5 to 8% more profit, actually, into both parties.
Nice.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, that actually increases the value of doing the deal with somebody who has you on their side, because you're actually improving the seller's return on investment, and obviously the buyer is very happy to have that extra cash in their pocket in that year. But the seller, for sure, is getting an extra bonus, a little extra money that they had no clue was sitting there. Yeah,
and if you're in a competitive marketplace where you're bidding on a property, you can go to the seller and say, hey, this is what we can do. We're not going to be able to change the price or anything like that, but what we can come with is we're going to do a cost seg feasibility study and see if there's money for you. What does that cost you as a real estate investor?
Right.
Nothing.
Very cool.
So you put a tool in your toolbox that probably no one else is using.
Absolutely. No, I've never heard of this before. How long does it take from start to finish? Like how long will this extend the deal itself?
So the feasibility study will give you kind of a budgetary number of what to expect. Yep. The actual cost seg study could take 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
But it can happen after the sale, right?
Really?
Yeah. So if I'm a seller, I sell my property, I still have to deal with the IRS on that sale. I can use a cost seg study to say, you know what, I should have done a cost seg study years ago, but I can go back 5 years to that pool of money that I paid those guys in DC and pull some of it back and say, hey, that really should have been my money. So I'm going to walk away with a little more cash. It could be a month or two later, but it's still very, very doable.
That is a very cool process. That's something that I've never done before. And before we continue on, what is the easiest way somebody? Yeah.
Are you saying I taught you something?
Yeah, of course. I learn something new every day. What is the easiest way to get in touch with you? What's your contact information? The easiest way for somebody to contact you if they're looking for something like this on a deal?
Yeah, so it's dwilder@itbglobal.com.
Yeah.
My cell number is 405-694-5325.
Very cool. And thank you for giving out your cell. It might start ringing, so that's a good thing.
Why am I here?
That's right. No, we're here to educate. That's right. I love it.
Yeah.
And if you educate, people will come to you. So, Dave, how long has the business been around? How long have you been doing this?
9 years. 9 years. Nice. I mean, and certainly, I'd be happy to help anybody on your team. If you want to know more, there's all sorts of stuff on Google. You can find about cost segregation.
Very cool. I love how excited you are. You're like, yeah, I taught you something. You get excited. You're waiting for it. You're waiting for it. I love that.
No, it's surprising. I work for some of the biggest companies in the world, and you would expect that all these guys in Wall Street, literally Wall Street, would have everything down pat as a fine science, and it's not the case. It doesn't matter where you are, who you are, where you are in business. There's always a few more things you can do to bring out some margin in your business. Right. And I just find that kind of fun to find it for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see it as the conversation's going. You're looking for, have you heard of this one? Have you heard of this one? Have you heard of this one? You get excited teaching your clients, new opportunities, new ways of investing and grabbing those little profit sectors. So how did you learn all this? How did you, so you've been in this 9 years, how did you learn all of the different tricks of the trade?
Okay. So, full disclosure here, I'm no sales guy. I'm the last person that could sell anything, but I call myself a recovering engineer.
Okay.
I'm one of those nerdy types that, you see a problem and you just dive into it to get an answer. And my corporate life, I was responsible to my vice president to find, to squeeze dollars out of the pennies they give me. So that's kind of where I learned in the trenches.
You had to learn. So you were squeezing dollars out of pennies.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's what I felt like. That's what I felt like. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like a lot of business owners are doing that, right? They can't figure out how to raise income here, so they simplify here. But they don't have the tools to do that simplification, to go in and grab the extra cash. How
Yeah.
how was it that you were able to find these tools? And what tools, aside from Cost Seg, what are some of the other tools that you use in a person's business?
Oh, wow.
I have that loaded question.
I mean, there's probably 30 or 40 different things we can look at. So my job at AIG was an underwriter.
Yep.
And I was underwriting for a squirrely little product called maintenance insurance.
Yeah.
So I was responsible for saying, if you own a manufacturing plant or a university or a healthcare center, your expense budget should be X.
Right.
So I was the guy that would go in, look at the contracts, figure it all out, and figure what you should be paying.
Right.
Very nerdy, a lot of numbers, a lot of crunching. So that's how you learn. So I maintenance contracts, insurance, if credit card processing, waste management, IT costs, insurance tools, all those things are just little pieces of what a business owner has to nail down to get maximum profit.
Right.
So our process is do a quick survey. We have metrics to determine whether they're overpaying or not.
Right.
If they're overpaying, we go after it. If we find something that saves them money, that's when we start talking money and how I get paid.
Right.
Everything else all the analysis and feasibilities are free.
Very, very cool. So you basically work for free until you find a way to help somebody.
Right. Or as I joke, somebody opens up their dumpster, I dive in. If I come up with cash, we share it.
Very cool.
The dumpster diving is free.
No kidding. I like that. So if you find cash, you share it, but you're diving in the dumpster that they're afraid to go in, or that maybe they've been in that dumpster before, they just can't find it because they don't know what they're looking for.
Well, I mean, if you talk to business owners, what do they care about? What's coming in the front door?
Yeah.
How can I get sales?
Yep.
Where's the next customer coming from?
Yep.
That's only half the profit equation.
Right.
The other profit equation is expenses.
Yep.
If I have a 10% margin business, if I save $1 on the back end, it's like selling something for $10. So you get that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a value we see it in a lot of businesses, right? They'll spend more time because right now we're talking about money. It can also be their time. They're spending a ton of time doing things that just don't deliver a return on investment, but they feel busy, so they continue doing it. And what you're doing is teaching people how to find those dollar savings and actually increase their profit margins without changing their service, without changing what they're already doing. So it's powerful, especially at a time like this where you're right.
Well, yeah, we've talked to companies. Yeah, we've talked to companies where, back in 2008, 2009, they had to downsize.
Yep.
So now all the people that are left are doing a lot more.
Yeah.
So you have somebody in the company that's trying to figure out what should I pay for my phones, and how about this, and how about that, and so someone who might not be an expert on all those 20 different contracts they have to deal with, they can bring someone in like me that does have a team of experts to figure that out.
I love it, Dave. So we've got only a few more minutes left, and you've given so much value already. What would you say are the 3 tips? Like if you could go back to early Dave, like just coming out of college, just coming out of high school and getting into the working field, if you go back to early Dave, or this is for entrepreneurs who are in their 20s to 50s, what would you say to them, whether they've got another 30 years left to work or whether they only have 5 or 10 years left to work? What is the 3 pieces of advice you wish you could go back and give somebody?
Well, I'm a little bit older than you are. I'm in my
Hey, you got more hair than me, Dave.
Just a note, when you said that we're going to do this thing, you talked about I had to shave, and we joked about my hair. You never made any comments if I had to have pants on or not. I'm just making that point.
No requirements. I don't want to know, but no requirements.
I'm okay. So I guess a lot of the things I would say would be mindset. So I was raised where, my dad was a corporate employee, get the education, get good grades, go after a great job, and really rely on someone paying you a salary.
Yep.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
so tip number one would be, day one, have a mindset that you are working for yourself.
Yes. I love that.
So what's your ROI for everything you do?
Yep.
So the other thing, and maybe, I'd love to have another session where we can talk about getting on the wealth curve.
Yep. I like that.
So that's something we should talk about in detail, but it's basically slow and steady will beat fast and flashy all the time.
Slow and steady beats fast and flashy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the wealth curve. I know exactly what you're talking about, where it's you just keep adding, but incrementally it starts going up, and because it's the compound effect over time,
Exactly right.
becomes
So it's a
working harder than
compound
you.
effect.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to realize if I jump off the wealth curve, if I pay things for cash, if I do a sale and I take some of my equity and throw it out to get something else,
Yep.
I've jumped off the wealth curve.
Yep.
So getting the mindset of what can I put aside, what cash can I put aside that will consistently, guaranteed work for me forever.
Yep.
And if I knew that when I graduated college, I would be retired with millions of dollars. I mean, it's that silly and that stupid, and you can't go back in time. But for someone like you, someone listening, it is the biggest. That would be one of the biggest things I could pass on.
Yep. I like that. Actually, you know what? With your cost segregation strategy, you can go back in time.
Well,
so you do have some strategies there.
And intellectually, yeah, you get it.
Absolutely. I love that. So get your mindset right. Make sure that you're paying attention to the wealth curve and really buckling down and just doing the commitments that it takes to get there. And was that 3, or do you have a third one that you would give somebody?
That was only 2. The third one, and I don't want to drive anybody off the rails, but the biggest reason for my current success was my faith and my marriage.
There you go.
I've been married for 42 years.
42 years? Dave, I thought you were 42. What do you mean?
Yeah. So I've been married for 42 years. So, getting out of the relationship stuff, we're talking finances here.
Yeah.
So the family and a marriage is a huge deal in getting you through good times and bad. So that would be my final third recommendation. If you can find a good spouse and make that commitment, I'm a believer.
I love that. There's a book called Millionaire Mind, and he talks about the top 5 things that multimillionaires, decamillionaires say that were a requirement, and spouse was between 2 and 3. So it's
really cool.
Yeah. Great advice, Dave. Thank you so much for being on. And yes, let's do this again. We'll do a whole conversation on the wealth curve and helping people build their wealth. I appreciate you. What again is the easiest way for people to get in touch with you before we hang up?
Again, it's D Wilder at itbglobal.com. That stands for In the Black. And my cell number, 405-694-5325. Call when you're smiling.
I love that. Call when you're smiling. That's a good advice for salespeople. Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate all of your knowledge. Thank you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have a choice, always work with the best. Later, Dave.
There you go. Okay, take care.
You too.